After my stroke, I moved in with my daughter to recover. Her husband gave me a list of chores. You're not paying rent, so earn your keep. I could barely walk. One night I collapsed in the kitchen. He stepped over me and said, "You can die after you mop." My daughter just kept eating her dinner. 3 months later, I finally stood up and... I'm Franklin, 67, and this isn't the story I ever thought I'd be telling. I worked my whole life as a welder in Birmingham, Alabama. Got up at 4:30 every morning, put in 12-hour days, saved what I could, and raised my daughter, Lacey, on my own after her mom ran off. I wasn't perfect, but I never gave up on her. Every school concert, every doctor's visit, I was there. Then last fall I had a stroke. Came out of nowhere. I remember trying to get up for the bathroom and hitting the floor. My arm wouldn't move, my leg wouldn't work right, and my mouth couldn't form the words to call for help. I laid there for almost 2 days before my neighbor, Ron, knocked and realized something was wrong. Hospital. Rehab. Physical therapy. It all felt like a slow-motion punch to the gut. I was weak. Scared. Couldn't eat by myself for a while. Couldn't tie my own shoes. When Lacey called and said, "Come stay with us, Daddy, we'll help you get back on your feet," I thought, thank God. I thought maybe all those years I gave her, she's finally giving something back. But when I got there, I realized real fast, I was nothing more than an inconvenience to her husband, Mitch. They lived in a decent 2-story home in Decatur. New siding, fresh paint, 2-car garage. I remember thinking, nice place. Must be doing okay. When I stepped inside, dragging my bag behind me with my good hand, Mitch barely looked up from his phone. No hug. No welcome. Just, "You got insurance for your meds, right? We're not footing that bill." I stood there, still trying to catch my breath after the ride. Lacey didn't say anything. Just told me where my room was, downstairs, near the laundry. No windows. Just a folding cot and a fan. That first week, I tried to be grateful. I really did. I thanked them every time they brought me food. I cleaned up what I could. I stayed in my room most days. I thought maybe if I stayed quiet, Mitch would warm up. He didn't. 7 days in, I woke up to find a sheet of paper on the kitchen counter. Written in Mitch's all-caps handwriting, "Dad's chores: sweep and mop floor by 10 a.m., vacuum living room and hall, clean both bathrooms, take out trash nightly, no TV during work hours, do your own dishes, no sitting around till 5 p.m. No. If you can. No. When you're able." Just a list. Like I was their maid. I could barely lift a laundry basket. My right leg dragged like dead weight when I walked. My speech was still slow and slurred. I stood there staring at that list for a long time. Lacey came into the kitchen and said, "Mitch just wants you to feel useful." I said, "Lace, I can't even lift my arm above my shoulder." She just said, "Try harder." The next month was like something out of a nightmare. Mitch would come home and inspect the floor with a flashlight. I'm not exaggerating. He once found one piece of lint under the dining table and said, "Guess you're too old to matter, so you just want to sit on your ass until you rot." Lacey sat there during these moments. She never said anything. She used to be kind, when she was little. I raised her on bedtime stories and pancakes on Saturdays. But now, it was like she left that part of her behind. Then came the night everything changed. I hadn't eaten all day. Mitch said I didn't earn dinner, because I left a spoon in the sink. It was a plastic spoon. That night, around 9:30, I tried to make toast after they went upstairs. Just something to keep me from shaking. My leg gave out in the middle of the kitchen. It locked up and I hit the tile floor hard. I cracked my head against the lower cabinet. Blood ran down my temple. I couldn't move. Couldn't even sit up. I wet myself lying there. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I was going to stroke out again. I yelled for help. Once. Twice. Mitch came downstairs first. He looked right at me. He stepped over me. Literally stepped over my body. He said, "You can die after you mop." Then he grabbed a beer and sat at the table like I wasn't even there. Lacey came down a minute later. She looked at me, looked at him, then sat across from him and started eating. I lay there for 2 more hours. Crawled to the hallway and passed out propped against the wall. No one called an ambulance. No one offered help. That was when something inside me snapped. I stopped talking unless they asked me something. I played dumb. I let them think I was broken. But every day while they were at work, I trained. In secret. I used soup cans to strengthen my arms. I walked up and down the hallway over and over. Practiced getting up from the floor. I watched YouTube rehab videos when they weren't home. After 2 months, I could stand on my own. Then I started recording. I bought a cheap recorder online and tucked it inside a shoe in the hall closet. I caught every insult, every threat. Mitch saying, "If he falls again, we leave him. Not our problem." Lacey saying, "He's faking it. He just wants sympathy." I logged everything in a notebook. I had dates, times, exact words. 3 months after I moved in, I walked into the living room without the cane. Mitch looked up and said, "Where's your walker, old man?" I said, "Donated it. I won't be needing it." He laughed. "Good. Now you can clean the upstairs too." I didn't say anything else. That night, I packed my things while they were asleep and took a rideshare to a cheap motel across town. Next morning, I filed a formal complaint with Adult Protective Services. I gave them everything: audio, journal, written statements. Then I hired a lawyer. See, I had a savings account they didn't know about. Lacey always assumed I spent everything on bills. Truth is, I'd been saving for her future, about $68,000. I'd planned to give it to her when she had her first kid. Not anymore. Now it went toward my legal fees. The lawsuit was brutal. Public. Everyone in their neighborhood heard about it. APS did interviews, inspected their home. Found more than just my complaints. They found Lacey used my social security number to pay off a credit card. Fraud. They tried to settle. I refused. I wanted it all documented. I wanted people to know what they did. Then I got a call from Mitch's job. Someone had sent the recordings to their HR department. They found out he joked about elder abuse in work emails too. He was fired by the end of the week. Their neighbors stopped talking to them. Their friends disappeared. When it was all over, they had to sell their house to pay the court-ordered settlement and legal fees. After they lost the house, they moved into a small apartment near the industrial park on the edge of town. I heard about it through one of Lacey's old friends, Donna, who used to work at the high school front desk. Word got around. They told everyone I was senile. That I imagined everything, because of the stroke. But the recordings were real. The bank statements were real. And the damage to my body, that was real too. What they didn't know is that I wasn't done. Mitch had filed for unemployment, but it didn't last. Nobody wanted to hire a middle-aged man with elder abuse flagged in his background. He tried to freelance. Failed. He even called me once. Blocked number. I answered out of habit. "You happy now?" he said. "You tore apart your own family." I said nothing. He said, "You'll die alone, Frank. Alone in some crappy motel." Then he hung up. But I wasn't in a motel anymore. After I left their house, I filed for disability properly. Got approved. I also reached out to a veterans support organization. I'd served briefly in my early 20s before becoming a welder full-time. They helped me get into a decent assisted living apartment. Clean. Quiet. Small, but mine. I finally had a front porch again. With a chair. And peace. But about 6 weeks after that call from Mitch, a letter came to my place. From a law firm. Lacey was trying to file for partial guardianship over me. Claimed I was mentally unfit, and that she was worried I was being manipulated by outside parties. I laughed when I read it. A dry, bitter laugh that echoed around the kitchen. She wanted control over what was left of my money. After all of it, she was still trying to take something. I called my lawyer. We filed a counter motion. We brought out everything again. All the same recordings, new medical reports, proof of stable living, my full independence. The judge dismissed her claim in under 10 minutes. But not before something else came out during discovery. Lacey had forged my signature on a durable power of attorney form months before I even had the stroke. She'd planned to access my savings once I got too sick to notice. Turns out, the credit card fraud wasn't an accident. It was step one of a plan. And that's when I saw it clearly for what it was. They hadn't just mistreated me when I was vulnerable. They had been planning to gut me from the start. I was their retirement plan. Their fallback. Their checkbook. When I confronted her in court, she didn't cry. She just stared at me like I was the villain. I said to her, right there in front of the judge, "I wiped your nose. I bought your prom dress. And now you're trying to steal what I built one broken hand at a time." She said, "You were supposed to help me, Dad. Not ruin me." She still didn't get it. But it got worse for them. Because after that hearing, my lawyer found something else. Mitch had taken out a business loan 3 years back, using false income claims and a forged cosigner. That cosigner was Franklin S. He'd used my name. That went straight to the feds. I didn't even have to do anything. The investigation was automatic. The bank pressed charges. And I didn't stop it. Mitch was arrested 2 months later. Wire fraud. Forgery. Federal time. Lacey tried to blame me for everything. She posted about it online. Claimed I was abusive. Said I manipulated the system. But I had everything. Years of pay stubs. Letters from coworkers. My journals. The audio. The reports. I sent it all to her job. She worked part-time at a dental office. They asked her to leave within the week. One night, a few weeks ago, I got a knock on the door. It was late. I looked through the peephole and almost didn't recognize her. Lacey. She looked hollow. Her hair was unwashed. She wore a jacket 2 sizes too big. I opened the door just a crack. She asked if she could come in. I said no. She said she had nowhere to go. I said, "Now you know how it feels." She cried. First time I'd seen her cry in 10 years. I stood there. My hands were steady now. My leg didn't tremble. I said, "I begged for your help. I begged for kindness. You chose silence. So now I choose silence too." Then I shut the door. I heard her sob through the door for maybe a minute. Then nothing. When I checked outside an hour later, she was gone. After Lacey showed up that night and I turned her away, I figured that was the end of it. I'd spoken my piece. She made her bed. But life doesn't let things stay quiet for long. 2 weeks passed. Then I got another envelope, this time hand-delivered to the front desk at my building. No return address. Inside was a picture of me, sitting on the bench outside the building. Next to it, a handwritten note. "You made your point. Now we make ours." No signature. No date. Just those words and a photo I never knew was taken. I froze. My stomach dropped. I thought about the neighbors. About my caseworker. About how many people knew where I lived. And then I thought about Mitch. He was supposed to be locked up. Last I heard, he was in holding waiting to be transferred to a federal facility. But something didn't feel right. I made a call to my lawyer. He checked the public court records for me. That's when we found it. Mitch had been released on bond. Apparently, a cousin with money posted for him while his lawyer filed for some kind of appeal, claimed medical hardship, and that he was not a flight risk. It didn't mean he'd walk free in the end, but for now, he was out. That meant Lacey might have come to my door knowing he was just down the road. It also meant someone was watching me. I contacted the local police and gave them the letter. They opened a case but said there wasn't much they could do unless someone made a direct threat. So I made my own plans. I installed cameras around my door and hallway. Got a cheap ring cam. Set up motion alerts. I also started carrying a small voice recorder in my coat pocket. But it was the third day after that note when things shifted again. A woman came by my building in the afternoon. She didn't knock. She just stood on the sidewalk, across the street, staring up at my window. The security guy, Mark, saw her on the feed. He said she'd come by before, sat on the curb for 20 minutes, then left. I watched the playback. She had long black hair. Pale. Thin. Looked young, maybe mid-20s. Didn't look dangerous, but didn't look right either. I didn't know her. Until 3 days later, when I got a letter in the mail with a copy of a birth certificate. The name at the top, Tessa Renee Hale. Mother, Lacey Hale. Father, unknown. Date of birth, 2002. That young woman outside? She was my granddaughter. I sat at the kitchen table, hands shaking again, but not from the stroke this time. Lacey had a daughter she never told me about. 22 years old. I missed every birthday, every Christmas. I never even knew she existed. There was a note in the envelope, too. In different handwriting than the last one. This one said, "She wanted to meet you. Her mom told her you were dead." That hit me harder than anything else ever had. Worse than Mitch stepping over me. Worse than Lacey eating her dinner while I bled on the tile. She told her own daughter I was dead. I didn't know what to do. For a few days, I just walked around the block, thinking it through. I couldn't shake the thought that maybe that girl, Tessa, had questions. Maybe she deserved answers. So I wrote her a letter. Short. Honest. Told her I didn't know she existed. That I had a lot of pain connected to her mother. That I didn't blame her for anything. I mailed it to the return address on the envelope, not knowing if it was even real. A week later she called me. Her voice shook like mine used to. She said, "I don't want anything from you. I just want to understand." We met at a diner the next day. She looked so much like Lacey had when she was 15, it made my chest tighten. She told me that her mom had raised her alone. That Mitch was in her life, but not as a father. That Lacey always talked about her, deadbeat dad, Who abandoned them? She said she never believed it. Not really. And then she said something that made my jaw clench. She said you tried to break into our house after your stroke. That you threatened her with a knife. I laughed. I didn't mean to, but I couldn't help it. Then I showed her everything. The files. The recordings. The medical documents. My court case binder. Tessa didn't say anything for a long time. Then she said, "She lied to me for 20 years. I said, "She lied to me too. Just longer." Tessa and I stayed in touch after that. Slowly. Carefully. We met for lunch, then coffee. We talked about music. About books. About how much she hated Mitch. She told me Lacey still talks to him. That they're both hiding from debt collectors. That Lacey started drinking heavily. That she blames me for everything. I could tell Tessa was torn. She wanted a mom. But she also wanted the truth. And the truth was ugly. I asked her, "Why did you really come to my building?" She said, "Because I wanted to see if the monster she described was real. And I didn't see a monster. I saw a man who looked tired but kind." She reached into her bag and handed me a photograph. It was me, sitting on the porch of my old house, 10 years ago. She said she found it in her mom's storage bin. On the back, in Lacey's handwriting, it said, "He'd rather be alone than be a father." I shook my head. She never asked me for help. Not once. Not until she needed something. Tessa said, "I know. I believe you now." Then she asked something I didn't expect. "Can I move in with you? Just for a while? I'll help out. I just need to get away from them." I didn't say yes right away. After everything, after all the lies, I couldn't just open the door and pretend nothing happened. But something in me, the part that remembered reading bedtime stories to Lacey, the part that still wanted to believe in family, told me to give the girl a chance. Tessa moved into the extra bedroom 2 weeks later. She paid rent on time, cleaned up after herself, and never crossed boundaries. She cooked, helped carry groceries, even sat with me during physical therapy appointments. We didn't talk about Lacey much, at least not at first. But I could see the damage in her eyes. Same look I saw in the mirror for months. One night she knocked on my door. I was watching the news. She looked nervous. "I want to do something," she said. "Like what?" "I want to get the truth out. About what they did. About what you went through. About how they lied. I want people to see it." I raised my eyebrows. She showed me a folder she'd been building. Lacey's old journals. Financial statements. Emails she pulled from an old shared cloud account. One of them was from Mitch to Lacey. "If he dies in the house, that's one less mouth to feed. Just saying." She had saved everything. She said, "I can't stop what they did. But I can stop them from lying about it." I told her, "You don't have to get involved in this." She said, "They already involved me. For 20 years. Tessa built a website. A timeline. Audio clips. Court records. Screenshots. Everything laid out clearly, simply, and truthfully. She posted it under her own name. At first, it didn't get much attention. But a local reporter found it. Then a regional blog picked it up. Then a national podcast about family abuse and elder law covered the story. It blew up. Within a month, the site had over 500,000 views. People called it the kitchen floor case. Commenters called Mitch a monster. Called Lacey worse. Tessa never spoke for me. She only said, "This is what happened. I needed to know the truth. So I found it." Mitch's bond was revoked once the feds saw the publicity and new evidence from the forged loan. He was arrested again, this time without the option of bond. A judge called him a textbook example of calculated elder exploitation. Lacey tried to sue Tessa for defamation. It was thrown out in 20 minutes. Turns out, when your lies are on record, in court, and publicly discredited, the judge doesn't take your side. I didn't watch the final hearing, but Tessa did. She told me Lacey didn't cry. Didn't apologize. She just looked cold. Numb. Like someone who still didn't understand the consequences of what she did. She was fined for credit fraud, barred from working in any profession tied to elder care or finance, and ordered into mandatory counseling. Her name, full name, was now searchable with the words elder neglect and financial abuse. No more jobs. No more second chances. She'd spent her life preparing to live off other people. Now, no one would let her in the door. Tessa stayed with me for a year. She got a job working part-time at the community center. Started saving money. Started going to therapy. Eventually moved into her own apartment 3 blocks away. We have Sunday lunch every week. She makes better chicken than I ever did. One day, about 6 months ago, she brought me a small wooden box. Inside were photos. Me, holding baby Lacey. Her first bike. A birthday cake. Our old dog. She said, "Mom kept these hidden. I thought you should have them back." I looked through each one slowly. I didn't cry. I thought I would. But I just felt something else, peace. She asked, "Do you forgive her?" I said, "No. But I'm done carrying it." A few weeks later, I got one last message. It was a letter. From Lacey. The handwriting was shaky. The tone was bitter. She said she had no one left. Mitch was in prison for 5 years. She was working at a gas station. She blamed me for all of it. Said I should have just taken the chores and shut up. There wasn't one word of apology. Not one. I burned the letter in a coffee can on the porch. Watched the smoke drift away. Sometimes, revenge isn't about yelling or hitting back. Sometimes it's standing up when they thought you couldn't. Walking away when they thought you never would. Letting the truth do the talking. And watching everything they built on lies come crashing down. They stepped over me like trash. Now I walk past them like ghosts. And every Sunday, when my granddaughter hugs me and says, "See you next week, Grandpa," I remember what it feels like to be seen. Really seen. Not as a burden. Not as a tool. But as a man who survived, and stood back up.